Cool. We're live, everybody. Hope everyone is doing great today. We have a very special guest, a person that I've been following for quite a while, and I admire not only the work but also the craftsmanship, and also as a business person, I admire you, man. So we have Bobby Chiu here over at our stream.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Thank you very much for having me.
So for anyone who might be wondering, because there's might very likely that it's gonna be some people that will show up on the stream and who's that guy, or maybe watch the
Sure.
video
Yeah.
a little later and like who is this person? Yeah, let's talk about Bobby. Who is Bobby Chu? Who is he?
Yeah. So that's me. And what do I do? I was just thinking about that today. I was thinking, I'm going to Comic-Con next week, and I was thinking, somebody asked me, what do I do? What do I say? And I think this is probably a good topic for the stream because you and I, we both do a lot of things, right, Massey?
Yeah.
Uh, like, you learn squared, I do schoolism, we do podcasts, and that's not our full-time job.
Nope.
It's working on movies, it's working on making TV shows and stuff like that. So I don't really know what to kind of say, but I guess to put it in a nutshell, I work on movies, and usually when I'm working on movies, it's pre-production, usually some sort of fantastical theme. I work in
Mm-hmm.
both live action and animated. I also created a TV show that won the Emmy in 2016 for best children's something something TV show, I guess. Um,
Damn, I didn't know
uh,
that.
yeah,
That
along
is
with
congratulations.
thank you very much. I won it with my wife Kay Asadera, who's an amazing, incredible artist, and Jim Bryson and Adam Jeffcoat, longtime college friends. So we made an animated comic book app, right?
Mm-hmm.
Called Nico and the Sword of Light. So when kids, they flip through this comic book, it looks like a real comic book, but then when they press on the panels, they animate and come to life, traditional animation with song or not song, but music and everything, voice effects, everything. Um, and then there's schoolism. Schoolism has kind of grown into a giant monster of a thing. Um, it's very much kind of like what Learn Square does as well. I'm not totally. I don't totally know exactly how Learn Square does stuff, but
All
um,
good. All good.
it's learning from professionals, right? Learning
Yeah.
from actual people that are doing the things that people want to do.
Yeah.
And so there's interaction as well. I'm assuming there's some sort of like paintovers or something where people are getting feedback directly from their instructor,
Yeah.
right, on
Yeah. Yeah.
LearnSquared. Yeah, so schoolism, very much the same thing. We've been around for 12 years. I believe, I'm pretty darn sure that we were the first to do with feedback, video feedback. So it wasn't just watching videos anymore.
Right.
Um, and so that's kind of grown into its own thing. You're asking before the interview, how many people at my studio. So there's 14 full-timers here in Toronto, I believe. And then we have a workshop house kind of project thing in Montreal where there's another one of our artists. And then we have 20 some odd teachers on schoolism. So it's grown into a pretty good size little
Nice.
company.
Very
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, 12 years in making. I mean, that's a lot of time, I gotta say, and a lot of energy put into something. I appreciate that a lot because, when we started Learn Squared on our end, we quickly realized how much of a beast it is to actually run a business, and that's a topic we should definitely touch upon shortly. But yeah, I mean, 12 years, goddamn, like you one of the things that I've learned quite quickly, and when you follow any kind of businesses or any kind of careers of prolific people, you start to realize if someone runs for little longer than a year or two with something, that means they're very passionate about it. Like you just cannot, you usually won't survive the first year if you don't have a passion to something, right? So I'm
Yeah.
assuming that's the case with you.
Well, the interesting thing about being around for over a decade is you don't just see people grow, and go from nothing to something, but you see people go from nothing to something and then back to nothing,
Right.
which is very eye-opening and very interesting and makes you really wonder what is the thing to do if you want to be an artist forever, for the rest of your life, not
Yeah.
10 years, but 40 years. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's an ever-changing industry, and there's something about it for sure. I mean, I kind of noticed a little bit of that more in the historical term when working in film industry, because like when you work with those guys, every now and then you would work with some veteran, like a person that's been there for 25 years, working in the film, being in the film union, doing all kinds of projects, and talking with those guys, yeah, like you quickly realize there's so many people that have been on the top, worked for James Cameron, been on the best films, and now 5 years later they're out of work. Like they
Or
don't
they
work.
just hate it, or they just got
Um,
completely jaded and
that
they
could be an
leave as
issue as
well.
well. Yeah, for sure.
That
The jadedness of
the mind game, the mind game of it all. How
yeah.
long have you been in the industry for now?
Well, I started in 2004. Or, yeah, 2004. It's where I got my officially first like freelance job. That's where I started. So it's
Yeah,
been
so then
13
all
years.
about, kind of like one of the big things is kind of like the mind game.
Yeah,
The little, dealing with politics, dealing with working on something for a really long time and it doesn't come out.
yeah.
Working on something for a
I've been
really
through
long
that.
time and it doesn't come out the way you thought it would come out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Of course.
All sorts of these kind of things. And then there's like the low points that everybody has and the high points. Like work kind of just comes in groups almost, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Did you have any
mind
low points in your life, like in your career? Not necessarily maybe with schoolism or your businesses, but like maybe on the film projects or animation projects. Any of that where you're like, fuck, I don't want to do this anymore.
I feel like so I feel like protecting my love of art has been a very conscious thing that I try to do.
Hmm.
When you just work on project after project, then I feel like it's a lot easier to burn out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Very easy.
yeah, so I do a lot of traveling, meet a lot of other people and just do various projects to kind of keep the love of art going.
Hmm.
But have I gone through tough times? Absolutely. Uh, so if I may, I'll just tell a little story about kind of
Yeah, go
like
ahead, man. I'm all
the
about
toughest part.
stories.
All right, right on. So, as a child, as a tiny, tiny little kid, uh, probably 3 years old, I remember my parents just um, loving and encouraging my art, right?
Hmm.
Distinctly, I remember drawing on the walls one day, and then my mom comes in and she looks at me, and I look at her, and one of my earliest memories, I'm thinking to myself, oh, shoot, you know, I'm in trouble. And my mom looks at me, looks at the wall, and she goes, okay, hold on. And she grabs a bunch of computer paper that she had.
Hmm.
This is like back in the day when computer paper is perforated, and so it's all stuck together, right?
Right.
And so she would just tape it up all along the bottom of the room. And then she gave me my crayons back and said, okay, go and draw. If you want to draw
Nice.
on the walls, go draw on the walls. Now you can. So that was great. And then I grow up and I realized that they don't want me to do this for a living, right? They're afraid. They're afraid I'm going to be uh, that person on the corner of downtown with my chair and a bunch of pictures up, and I'm drawing characters, which is totally, in my opinion, I think whatever makes you happy, as long as, it makes you happy, and go and do it. But they don't obviously like that idea. And that wasn't what I was thinking either. So they said, okay, don't be an artist. I love the fact that you do art, but you want to be an artist? I'm saying no.
Mm-hmm.
Go be a business person, a lawyer, a doctor, whatever. My dad's a business person, or he was before he retired, owned his own company. And so I was like, okay, I bought into it, right? And so I didn't know where to put my energy, because I didn't have any direction in life.
Right.
So it would just be like causing trouble, things like that. And then I graduated. I graduated high school, went to business school. Okay, and hated it. Absolutely hated it. I was pretty good at it, but I hated it, and I stopped going to classes. Well, actually, first I started bringing art supplies to like accounting class, economics, and I would do like a watercolor painting and then leave. And then I stopped going to class, only went to one exam, brought a bunch of pastels to my accounting exam, and then I painted a cat and I left. And then so when my parents got the report card, it was like all it was E's. It wasn't F's, it was E's. E's mean that you failed, and my mom's like, what does E mean? I never seen an E before. Does that mean excellent? And I said, no, Ma, I failed everything. And she goes, well, I hope you know what you're doing, because it looks like you're going to art school. And I said, heck yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to apply for the hardest art school that people say, that's within my area, which happens to be the school called Sheridan College, just outside of Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
So I apply for the animation program. It's like, back then it was like 6-7% entry. I didn't get in. Did I get in? No, I didn't. I ended up going to this course called Art Fundamentals, which they don't even look at your portfolio. Man, you just have to have 70% average and you're in.
Right.
So I got in and worked my butt off and graduated on top of my class, and then got into animation, right? So first time I tried to get into animation, another no. First time I asked to be an artist, a no. And then I got into animation, worked my butt off, graduated with the top of my class again. 9/11 happened, that year. And so nobody was hiring. And could I get a job? No, I couldn't get a job, right? So I went back to my high school job, which was still pretty cool, as designing toys for like Disney products, Pixar, Star Wars, that kind of stuff. And then I applied for computer animation, which was like the ultimate goal, because that was really hot back then. Did I get in, Massey? Nope, I didn't get into that either, Graduated towards the top of my class. And then I went back the next year, applied, got in. Graduated at the top of my class again. Could I get an art job? No, I couldn't get an art job. I got a job in a television studio, Nelvana, which is a wonderful company, and they treated me very nice. But my position then was data manager, which affectionately it was known as FTP monkey. So what would happen is people would send us files through the FTP, or literally mail us hard drives. And I would take the clips in there, the files in there, and put them to the right, departments.
Right.
And then as it's copying over, I would just draw. And then sooner or later, they took away my pencils, because they're like, you're drawing too much. That computer guy really likes to draw, and so
Was it depressing for you to have to been rejected so many times? Because it seems like everything you
absolutely.
tried was like, fuck, like, nope, 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 nope.
Yeah, totally. Why I started Imaginism Studios is because I couldn't get a job. I
Yeah.
couldn't get a job. So,
Was it
um,
encouraging to you? More encouraging, or more like what the hell do I even am I supposed to do this? Or you were you like driven by that?
well, this is the thing. This is the thing, right? So, as I'm a data manager, I'm taking all these really, beginner type jobs um, for freelancing.
Hmm.
And then once I got enough freelance, where it's like 8 hours of freelance and 8 hours of work, then I decided to quit, right?
Got it.
And when I quit my job, I went home that day, turned on my computer to do some freelance, and the computer wouldn't work. It was broken. It was physically broken. The hard disk was not turning properly anymore. There's this weird click sound that kept
Yeah, yeah,
happening.
yeah. I know that very well, and it's not the fun part to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's on the exact day that I quit my job. The exact day I come home and it's not working. And that was the probably one of the lowest points where one has to kind of question themselves, if they went through all these different events, like is fate trying to tell me something?
Yeah,
Is
should
trying to
stop.
tell, yeah, not to be an artist. And then I came to realization. And I was like, you know what? All these no's throughout my life have really actually helped me. When this whole entire time I thought it was trying to tell me to stop, or it's just life doesn't like me, that kind
Hmm.
of thing. But then I realized that these no's was almost like hardening me, so I don't care if you say no anymore. I don't care. If I think it's logical and I think it's right and it's not harming anybody, I'm going to go and do it regardless if you think it's right or wrong. I will
Right.
find out myself. And that kind of mentality uh, has been very valuable, doing the things that I've done because, like we were talking earlier, when schoolism started, there was no Facebook yet. People were still afraid of just using PayPal, right? And we're trying to sell like $1,000 classes. Nobody thought it would work, and then it worked really well.
Hmm.
Same with the online, the app that I was saying for Nico and the Sword of Light. That
Right.
app, that app was, it cost us in like six figures to develop and make this app. And the first figure does not start with one. A high-end comic book costs what? It costs, maybe 60,000, $70,000 to produce.
Right.
So this is more than how much, the biggest, baddest comic book companies would spend on a comic book. Did
Right.
anybody think that that was a good idea? It's kind of doubtful, you know?
So I gather the app eventually been successful, right?
Yeah, eventually though. The interesting thing is that viral things don't usually start off viral.
Yeah, yeah, of
You know,
course.
when
That's
we
a
put out
myth.
the app, we put out this app, right? It took us 2 years, of our free time to make this app, and it dribbled. The first 3 weeks, the sales were horrendous. It was like a
it's
ghost town.
it's the moment where you know some outlet catches it, or someone who's popular catches it, and then it starts spreading. It's so difficult to sort of like hit that market if you want to get viral with something. It's you cannot plan for it. It's either going to happen organically or it's not going to happen at all. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we just kept plugging away. We took this as because I've had so many no's in my in my career. I told them, my whole entire philosophy, which is when somebody says no and you still think it's a good idea, there is a very good chance that you are onto something. Because new things generally a lot of people say no to. So we just kept plugging away, and then after the third week, boom, it shot up like a rocket. The graph was pretty much like that. It was just like an L shape, a backwards L shape. And then by the end of the week, we were number one in over 30 countries in our category.
Damn, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was a huge gamble, of course, but it makes life worth living.
Yeah, it's it's the struggle you go through that eventually ends up being in a successful position that makes it that much more tasteful, right? Or that much more tasty.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also, like your hardest times, when you talk about them now, when you think about them now, it almost puts a smile on your face, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course, of course. And I'm looking back at what you're saying, like being rejected so many times. It just shows that whatever you've been doing so far, at least that's my understanding so far to it is you've been very passionate about it because the first thing people who has no passion, someone who has no passion to do something and they want to do it for I don't know, let's say monetary reasons, right? Let's say you want to start a business or you want to become an artist because you have that assumption that oh, like this is where the money is at, and this is if I pres- uh, proceed with that path, I'll make money, right? The problem is you won't, not for the first 5 years or more. It's not gonna happen unless you have incredibly awesome ideas in your head.
And you'll
Um,
never reach the top, too. You'll
yeah,
never reach the top if it's only about money
yeah,
because you got somebody like us that loves the shit and will do it for free and do it, on even if we didn't have a job, we'd still be doing this stuff.
right.
Right? And how are you going to compete with that when your only motivation is a bunch of numbers in your bank account?
Yeah, that's true. And my main point was though, is usually after a year or two, you're gonna be so exhausted because it's not 9 to 5. None of it ever is. Whether you're becoming an artist or you're running a business or creating an app, and then the results may or may not happen. There's so many layers that come with it. Let's say an example of your application, right? The app that you guys made. No one told you that after spending X amount of money, and you guys spent a lot of money to do it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you could buy a house for that money easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. You could.
You decided to make an app. Nobody told you like, oh, it's gonna be guaranteed success.
No.
Doesn't work that way. You have to be like you have to just chip away and chip away and chip away and hope that eventually something's going to happen, but there's no guarantee. So unless you're really passionate about what you do and you really love what you've done, uh, you're going to be disappointed right away. And it's same with art. Like just considering your history, looking at what, being rejected all the time, whether it's your parents saying like, you should probably not be an artist because that's where the money isn't. Or being rejected from all the schools that you applied to, all the jobs you applied to. If you normal person, if you wouldn't have a passion, you would quit. You'd be like, okay, fuck that, I'm not gonna do this. Doesn't make any sense. Like I've tried enough times, I'll quit.
Hmm. Yeah, but one thing I do want to get across to everybody is like, did I ever feel like quitting before? It's definitely crossed my mind.
Oh
So
yeah,
if it's
yeah, yeah.
crossed your mind, you're not alone. You're on the same path. If bad things happen, if you're having a hard time, guess what? You're still on the same path as us.
Oh yeah.
That is the path. The wrong path is just walking away when it gets hard.
Yeah, I mean, we all think about quitting. I mean, hell, like I've had so many moments where I just want to say fuck it and just like not do that stuff. Like those are the worst moments where nothing's going well. Like how many times you've got a client that you work with and everything you've sent was rejection. Like why the fuck did I even work on that project? But then you start to realize like he still keeps me as a person on the project. That means something. I mean,
Mm.
something's still maybe going on there. So you should
Maybe he
never
just doesn't
quit.
know how to say you're fired.
Ah,
I don't know
uh,
about you, but I want to ask this question. A lot of times I get these people will approach and say, we are looking for somebody to work on this project,
uh huh.
and we just need the person for 10 working days, or 9 working days. And it's almost like they're telling you that because it's a test, and if they like you, then all of a sudden that project stretches into like months and months. And then sometimes it doesn't, and the 9 days are up, and they go, okay, thank you very much, and they let you go. It's almost like this nice way of just putting you on trial and not having to actually fire you.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I understand why they're doing this, and that does happen to me as well. It did happen to me a couple of times where I'll be hired for a project like, oh, we're gonna work 2 weeks, and it ended up being a couple of months. Um, I worked with several big companies that I was supposed to work for 2 months as a trial, and they were like pretty straightforward. Like, we wanna try you for 2 months.
Mhm.
We know you have a great work, but we don't know if it's gonna fit to what we do. And then we're gonna try you for 2 months, and it ended up being a 7 months project. So it's one of the difficulties I believe of being a freelance artist, where you never know how long the job's gonna take, because you might be hired for 3 months and then 3 days later, unless the contract says differently, you're out of the work. Because they quickly figure out like you're not the right fit. So it's a difficult thing, I think, and it's actually an interesting subject, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people have same issues, like all of us actually as an artist. Especially if you're freelance. If you work in the studio, it's a little different, right? Because then
Mm.
you kind of have a solid job, and unless you fuck up dramatically, then you should be good.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, it does happen to me as well. I've been on a couple of projects like that, where I was supposed to work X amount of time, and I worked longer. And I've been on the projects where they would tell me like, oh, it's gonna be a couple of months, and then 2 weeks later, oh, we're done.
Oh,
What?
wow.
Yeah. So
Okay, I've never had that, but
yeah, that
yeah,
happens too, and
that's way worse,
it's way worse, and it's a learning lesson as well, because then you sort of like quickly realize that you should have everything in the contract.
But
Like, you should protect
do you
yourself.
put something in the contract that guarantees you, like if I get on this project, it has to be a minimum of this many days.
Um, I honestly, more recently, I don't. It's mainly because I don't work with clients that I haven't worked with before, in most cases, or people that I already trust.
Mm.
I mean, I feel like I'm in a lucky situation, or a lucky spot, that I have enough work to choose from, that I can choose to work with people that I worked with before. Um, and it is definitely helpful to be in that spot. But I've been in the places, especially in the beginning of freelancing, where everything was so hectic. I was stressed out, and would work like 3 4 jobs at the time, because you never know what the hell is going to happen tomorrow.
I
And
just
I,
wanted to ask one more thing. Like, it's almost like I'm looking in your window, and it's like almost opposites. You're in such a dark place. Like,
oh, it's my camera setup.
oh, okay, okay. But
Yeah,
you
it's super
usually
bright
work in a
outside.
really dark room.
Yeah, I like darkness. I like
Yeah.
everything being dark.
So do
Um,
you ever get like your eyes get sore at the end of the day?
no, I try to take regular breaks, and I also more recently been working way less than normally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, trying to sort of scale down in amount of work that I'm taking on myself, and trying to get off that rat race that I've been on for, gosh, I don't know how long. It's definitely one of those things that I want to change in my life. But yeah, the room setup is interesting, because I everything out. If I move my camera just a couple of degrees left or right, it's gonna be like, where what is this warehouse fucking thing? It just looks
Let's see
nice.
a little bit of it. Can we can
Nah.
no?
There's too much
Okay,
too
okay.
much too much crap around.
All right,
Dirty
no problem.
laundry, stuff like that. I don't know. No, I mean, the camera setup is. I mean, it's. I have like this LED lights that sort of light my beautiful face, obviously,
Oh,
and because I use DSLR camera,
okay.
it's just like the exposure makes it so it's more contrasty and darker. But it's
Okay.
super bright outside. It's like noon, so.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I was wondering
I
like,
have blinds on. I don't like
mm,
I don't like when when it's too bright, because like you get that reflections on your screen. It's just like impossible
Hmm.
to work. So yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting contrast. That's true.
Yeah, well, mine, like I have windows in front of me and towards the side,
Right.
and then I put the blinds. I have like thinner blinds, so light still comes in,
Yeah.
and then it's all ambient kind of light. So
I'll tell you,
versus
this
those
room is
blinds.
about 10 times brighter than it looks on the camera. Like, so I just made the camera to be epically freaking cinematic,
Oh,
if
okay.
anything. No, but yeah, there's more natural light in this room. It's just the exposure of the camera that makes it look that way. So yeah. Anyways, we were talking about exhaustion, business, and all of that stuff, and sort
Yes.
of being really um, passionate about something. So there's two topics we kind of started, um, and it's very interesting to talk about. So one topic is obviously passion and not quitting, which is pretty much a history of your life. And the second topic is business, and I think the business topic could be a really interesting one. I don't know which one we should focus on. What do you think?
Actually, I figured out the audio problem. I'm using the wrong mic. This mic isn't
Oh,
even on. So let me try to switch over. Is that
oh,
cool?
that might be it. That might be. You know
Yeah,
what? Skype does
See,
that. If you connect like
how's this?
oh
Is this
oh
better?
oh yeah, of course it is better.
Because it should be crystal clear.
Oh yeah, now it's like perfect, like radio perfect. I was wondering, like, you have a good mic and it sounds kind of crappy, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry guys. I didn't switch any
Oh,
settings, and then all of a sudden, yeah, it just
it's
switched
man.
over to another.
We're talking over Skype, and that's a Skype thing. Like, I've noticed that Skype, whenever it does update, sometimes it just mixes the settings, and I have to set up everything uh, again. And I was like, I didn't catch that when before, because we were discussing audio before. Like, there was some crackling
Mhm.
going on, and I don't know, but we figured like, okay, fuck it, let's just do the stream.
Now is this
Um,
guy David swearing about the audio, so I was like, oh man, okay, let me look one more time. So thank you, David. Right on.
don't listen to chat. Fuck those guys. No, I love you guys. You guys. I love you. Anyways, yeah. So wait, what's let's talk about business maybe. Let's talk
Sure.
about because the conversations about passion, like I think everyone talks about it all the time, and it's pretty obvious. It's almost like a cue that you could play anytime asked about passion. You just play that clip and and that's it. Um, you have to be passionate. That's it. That's as easy as that. But let's talk about the business, because I think business part.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting topic for everyone, um, uh, especially for artists that think about being freelancers, because it's a little different when you work in the studio, right? When you work in the studio, you're uh, abided by a contract. The rules are quite significantly different to your work and how you work versus when you are freelancer. But when you become a freelancer, it becomes really tricky. And there's a lot of things I've learned personally, and you as well, especially being a very prolific person and running all of those many side projects and businesses, app, your school, your company, everything all at once. I think you had a fair share of your own experiences when it comes to business side of things, and yeah, let's focus on that. So, what is your general approach when you work with clients? Like, let's say you get a call to work on a film, right?
Hmm.
And there's a studio, there's someone who you don't know, because it's a little different when you work with someone who you trust.
Right.
But when you work with someone who you absolutely never worked with, have no experience with, none of your friends know that person, what's your approach when it comes to that?
Well, first, I live in Toronto, so we try to do some sort of web call, video call where I can I could stare into their eyes, and really see what they're about, and they can see that I'm not an alien, and try to,
Face to face.
uh, yeah, try to really connect with them and try to understand what their vision is, if hopefully they have one, or what kind of things do they want from me, specifically. So there's a lot of questions being asked by both sides. I think that's very important, that you don't just kind of get on the call and
Right.
and just kind of sit there and wait for the questions to come. Um,
Yeah. Do you
Another
prepare?
thing,
Do you prepare like any kind of questions, like almost a template that you have for clients that you prepare yourself to know what to ask?
if I know some information in the beginning before our meeting, which is something I like. Something else I like is I like to tell people, okay, well, you want me to start this project, you want the best result possible. Um, the first week, I'm just going to do research. I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
give you guys anything, and I'm not going to charge you. I'm just going to do research because, as a freelancer, you already get paid quite well. Um, and if
As
there's a
you should.
minimum,
Yeah.
right, but it's a lot more than like in a studio, uh, and or usually, and then you also, if you're freelance, it's kind of like, okay, if I hired you and you work for a week, I go, how's it going? And you go, great. I go, can I see something? And you say, I don't have anything. Then it feels really bad for me. I feel like you aren't working. So I have the minimum where it's like, okay, well, we're going to do at least this many days.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Now that makes me feel good, that to actually take a bunch of days to think about the project and research and try to find some inspiration, some good ideas, and all that good stuff before I actually start painting. I found that to be really, really great, especially for freelancers, because a lot of us just feel like we just gotta hit the ground running and start making, concepts right away, which a lot of times that kind of
That's
seems
what I
like the
do.
situation. Yeah, yeah. So I used to do that. But now I found, if I take that 1 week to research and all that stuff, and you're doing other projects too at the same time, right?
Right.
So it's not like you're not getting paid during those days. Um, but it can simmer a bit in the back of your head. And that to me, has been a significant difference, in the quality and the ideas and the creativity and stuff.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. I think I do something similar, not necessarily just taking a week on something, but I've noticed, like, as I'm thinking about it, it's like I usually have those conversations with clients happening way prior to starting actual work. And instead of doing my own research, I usually ask them for all the materials they have that
Oh
might
yeah,
be
yeah. No, I
beneficial.
want those too. I want
Right,
those
right. Okay,
things
yeah.
too.
So we do something similar, I guess. I mean, yeah, it's like you
It's
want to
just
have.
really, I think we do pretty much the same thing. It's just I tack on just a few more days, ahead of the
Got it.
start date, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I skip that step entirely if I work with someone that I worked with already, because then once you work with someone who you worked with before, you kind of understand what their prerogative is. Like which direction it's gonna go. Like what is their taste?
Hmm.
What kind of stuff they like to see? I have a couple of production designers like that. I worked, like, for instance, with Owen Patterson. We worked together on Gods of Egypt, and we did quite a bunch of work. It was a learning process for me to work with that guy because he has a very specific style of work that he likes and whatnot. But then the next project we worked together on, which was Captain America, the Civil War, I didn't have to ask anything. Like he would just draw a topic and I would just draw, and it would be just almost perfect, right? I would knew, like, okay, this is the changes I need to make, and he would usually have some notes and whatnot, but it went always very well because of that, because of knowing what he likes and knowing what kind of work he's expecting, and obviously knowing what the project is going to be about. All of those things, as you learn, matter, but
Hmm.
also knowing who you work with
Yeah,
matters as well.
I totally agree. If it's somebody that's very familiar, then definitely it gets a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but the thing is, I also feel like they kind of like it. Like if they say, okay, yeah, we're gonna start August 1st, then I'll be like, would it be okay if I got a bunch of the material a little earlier so I can kind of think about it and research and all that stuff before we start? And, of course they're gonna be like, oh wow, like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
sure.
They like that stuff. Yeah, for sure. No, that's a good move. That's something that almost no one ever talks about. Sort of like being almost like making those progressive moves that are not necessarily adding any extra work on your plate, because essentially what you're doing is you're asking for the material you're maybe going to spend an hour or two on, just to sort of review and do your own research, and then
Hmm.
maybe have more time depending on how well you want to be prepared. You might put more time to it, but in their eyes it's like, oh, he's already working and he's doing it for free before you even started.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
It's a smart move to have. Um, how do you so obviously that's a good point, and having a prior conversation, having a phone call conversation is probably the best. Like, not phone call, sorry, the Skype. I try to avoid phone calls as much as I can. If they're saying like let's have a phone call, I usually ask like let's maybe have Skype to see one another.
Hmm.
Because me, I agree. Like having someone face to face is so much better. Even like having this podcast, like I would give away my left nut to have a studio and invite people in, fly them in, and have a phone face to face conversation instead of having them on the Skype. Because
Hmm.
when you go on the CTNX or any of those places, those workshops, and you talk to the artists face to face, that conversation is so much different, so much better, and more organic. Whereas when you talk over Skype or talk over phone, it's like there's a lag, there's a little delay, interruptions. Like, it's just all of those things happening that are not making the experience as fluid as it's supposed to be. But yeah, like having Skype with the client is good. Um, I rather obviously have Skype than the call.
Oh,
Um,
if you don't mind, I just wanted to mention what the heck people are looking at here. This is just a still life. Okay, I usually paint creatures and fantastical kind of themes, but it's very important to always keep up your fundamentals, to always keep studying and all that stuff. So I figured it'd be nice to just do a still life and send it to Massey, real time. So this is just a practice.
yeah, just to get you guys entertained, just to get you guys entertained. But
Yeah,
anyways,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. By the way, whoever's listening to this right now, as we're live, just ask questions. I usually leave the QA part towards the end, so we can focus on conversations. But yeah, anyways, so yeah, like having Skype conversation, I think it's the best. How do you go about the contracts though? Because that's probably something that a lot of people don't know how to tackle. There's obviously just two kinds of artists you're gonna have that ask this question. One type, which is, I really need that work. I really need that work because I need to make money. My work is not that great just yet, so any kind of work that I do is going to help me to at least to pay the bills. And then you're gonna have a set of artists, which is much smaller group, that have enough experience, have had done enough work, and the quality of the work that they do is much better now, so that they get the offers, and they can sort of like now make calls and say, all right, I want this and this in the contract. How do you approach that personally? Do you have any sort of like set of rules that you specifically adhere to, and you say no to the project if some of those rules are not met? Like, how do you approach that you personally?
Um, well, in the very beginning, I'll get to the contract in a bit, but in the very beginning, one of the strategies was let's try to do more than one thing. And if anything starts to take off, we put a little bit more effort into that.
Right.
And try to always think, how can I get off of that thing and have it keep going? And
Yeah.
so that helps to build security, and then hopefully enough security where you can be like, I don't care if I'm not working the next 4 months, the next year, hopefully, I'm going to take on the projects that I really love. When you can actually say, I'm out, then that's true negotiation power, when
Yeah.
it comes to your contract. Um, and that's kind of like how it is now. So it's been really nice like that. I only take on projects that I really, really love. So one thing is, you're not always going to get projects that you really, really love. So you might have to wait a bit more. You might have to kind of put your name out there a bit more to attract those kind of jobs. But at the same time, I'm way happier, just way happier. And I don't honestly, like, after a while, if you've kind of got to experience the things that you want to experience and achieve the things that you want to achieve, what is the exact reason that you would want to work on a cool movie now?
You get
It
jaded,
almost kind
man.
of, you get jaded, but I'm protected. I feel like I'm protected because I have my own studio, I have my own people
Yeah.
here and everything, so I don't get mixed up in that drama.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I've heard of projects where it didn't go so smoothly, and I was on that project, and I thought, oh, I didn't notice any of that. It's because I was here, I was protected.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, but if you're not working for the money, and that you got rid of that issue, that's when things get really fun, and the real joy, and love of art gets amplified so
Kicks
much
in.
more.
Yeah.
And if people know that, hey, you know what, be careful, like, that guy's good, you got to treat him good, or else he will walk. He doesn't absolutely need that job. Then they will treat you nicely, as long as you're not a jerk, right?
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah,
if you're a good person and
that's
you're
a
trying to do
given.
good things, and people know that, yeah, you're not desperate, then they'll treat you nicer.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, obviously you don't want to be a dick. That's the last thing you want to do. And I've been saying that many times. Like, when you work in this industry, you want to be the nicest person out there. Like, you want to be associated with, like, be yourself. Obviously, don't play like the actor game where you're forcing yourself to do things that you don't normally do. But don't be an asshole to people. Like, don't just be condescending to someone else's work. Like, don't treat your clients as idiots if they don't agree with your ideas, right? They're paying you to do that stuff. Treat everyone well, and you're gonna be treated well. But
Not
it's
only
it's
that, but it's like the people that that meet you at Comic-Con, they're just a teenager,
yeah,
they have no money, that kind of stuff. Treat those guys nice too.
yeah. You
Because
never know who
now,
they're gonna be in the future.
dude, before it was like, oh, hey, Bobby, I used to listen to your YouTube videos when I was in college. Thanks so much. Now it's like, when I was a little kid, I was watching your YouTube videos, and now I'm an art director over here. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah,
Who knows
exactly.
what time will do?
Man, you never know. And I've heard that story so many times where you would have a kid that wanted to do something, and it turns out it's a friend of a director, and or a friend of like a production designer. I've heard those stories many times where an artist would help a kid that was just a random kid, and it so happened that this kid was friends with someone big that got them job later on. That happens oftentimes. Like, not oftentimes, but that can happen. Like, let's say you're aiming for that dream project, and then you diss that kid away, like, oh, fuck off, like, I'm busy, and it turns out that's a nephew of a person that you're supposed to work for. Like, how
Yeah.
do you think that's gonna turn out? You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
and I was that kid. It's like, has that ever happened to me when I was just starting off? Yeah, it has. And do I remember?
Yeah,
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 100%. And that was the last memory I have of you. You know what I mean? Of that person.
yeah.
And so in
Uh,
my mind, that person has not changed.
Yeah, even though that person might be just like, oh, I'm so fucking busy, I just really, literally have no time. Fuck off.
Yeah, and I do give them
Yeah,
that benefit of a doubt.
yeah,
That's why
you
I
have
won't
to.
name that person, but or those people or whatever, because you don't know the situation that they were in that day.
Yeah.
They could have had a very, really, really bad day. So you
All
never
right, but
know.
to roll it back just a little bit, so
Hmm.
you gave a pretty good advice about sort of like making sure that you're secure enough that work your way up there, make savings and be secure enough so that you're not desperate for work, right?
Yeah.
But how do you get to that point? Like,
Right,
it's a
right. It
very broad question.
sounds,
it
yeah,
sounds
totally.
so
No,
like,
but let's
but
try
Bobby, but
to.
you've been like in this industry for you're good already. Like you can do that. My work sucks. Like what am I supposed to do?
Okay, so Massey, 10 years ago, were you making the same money you were now?
No, of course not.
Not even close, right? And the
Yeah.
people out there
Don't
10
get me
years
wrong.
from
I already know
now,
the answer. I'm just on behalf of the people.
right? And the people that are listening now, whatever money you're making now,
Yeah.
do you, it's probably going to be a lot more in 10 years. So from this point forward, after this interview and forever and ever after this, if you ever get another raise, pretend you only got half of that raise. Put the rest in the bank and hopefully try to make it automated so you don't even see it.
Yeah.
And then when the time comes when you need that money, you will have that money. And however much money you have now, most likely you're okay with that. And you can live a good life like that. And when you get a raise, still experience that raise. Just don't experience the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then you'll start to slowly build up your stuff. And one day, hopefully, you have a really good creative idea like the animated comic book, and then you have the war chest to do it.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I did it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you have to be frugal about your work and your savings. That's something that you just have to do. If you
But
can,
actually, I'm not even frugal with my money. You know what I mean? It's because that money that I'm supposed to save, I don't even look at it. The rest of it, you can spend it however you want.
but it is some kind of form of being frugal. Even though you're doing it, like you made a conscious decision to do that, like to make sure that half of it is not even in question at all. And by the
Yeah.
way, like a lot of that's another thing that should probably be mentioned is a lot of artists that work as freelancers, they don't realize that you still have to pay taxes. And at the end of the year, you get that check that you have to send to IRS for some thousands and thousands of dollars, and you're like, where am I supposed to get that money out from?
Yeah.
So like the rule of the thumb for me is like taxes in the US are pretty low generally. So the way I run it personally, and I found it to be very good, and usually I end up with actually getting a refund from what I expected, is I assume that half the money that I made didn't even exist, because
Mm.
that's the taxes and savings. Like the half of what I made working on that freelance project don't even exist. Even though the taxes can vary depending on expenses, and the brackets anywhere between, I think
So
in
you're
US,
not you're not like you don't have you're not incorporated.
I am incorporated. But
Oh,
but
okay.
even if you have like if you're incorporated and you have to sort of like pay yourself a payroll or some kind of like, there's a system that works in US
Oh
specifically,
yeah,
has an
yeah. No,
accountant
I
to
was
do
just
that.
mentioning that because I was like, yeah, and people should, if they make over a certain amount, they should think about getting incorporated.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And that's something we should touch upon too. But what I'm saying is, you're going to pay probably around 30% taxes on average in the US. 30, maybe 35 depending on your tax brackets. And the rest of it is savings to me. But I assume
Hmm.
like from the get-go, taxes 50%, fuck off. I'm not, that's where I'm at. Sorry, 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 sorry. I only get half of the money that I make, and the other half I don't even touch, because that's what I have to pay in taxes. And whatever is left over, that's like the saving chunk that usually turns out to be bigger than you expect. And then you're like positively surprised. But a lot of people assume like, oh, I'm gonna make $1,000 off this project, right, or of this illustration, and then it so happened like, oh, it's actually not 1,000. It's like more or less 600 because everything else is taxes and whatnot. And then they get, you know, kicked in the nuts at the end of the year almost, you know. Like, oh, like there's this big IRS thing that is after me right now. I've seen this happen. Like, I'm not saying it just to be condescending on anything, because I've seen professional artists doing that mistake.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh
it's
my
crazy.
goodness.
It's crazy. Yeah.
There's
So
like a whole genre of artists that have very little concept of finances, which is so sad.
so let me ask you a question, because you were in the business school. You probably didn't pay much attention, but do you think that business school helped you? That year of the business school up until the first exams
I'll
helped
tell
you?
you what really, really helped me was, I was mentioning my dad was a businessman.
Right.
I didn't learn too much from business school that I found to be super, super helpful in the time that I've been there. So,
Right.
obviously I didn't finish it. But my dad, he owned his own business. And, for the international people listening, in North America, anyways, there's a saying where it's like, don't bring business to the dinner table. Well, my parents are from Taiwan, so they never heard of this shit. And they would constantly, my dad would come home from work and be like, so this happened to me today, and this problem occurred. What would you do, Bobby? What would you do, Ben, my brother? And, I'm like 5. I'm like, I would try to come up with answers. He would make sure that I came up with answers. And then when I became more like around 10, then some of the answers made more sense. And then he would start to take some of those
Mm.
suggestions and things. And that was fantastic for me for my own training to become a business person. You know, it's funny because, like I said, I was like, no, screw business. I'm going to go into art. And now I'm a business person that does art.
Yeah, I didn't have that. Like, I wish I had sort of like a business advice person in my life. I've learned everything by making big mistakes that cost me a lot of money. And that's how I've learned business on my end, actually. But it's
Well,
good to
yeah,
have
and that's
someone.
that's the kind of stuff I love to kind of share with people. So like audience, if you guys have any questions or if you have any questions about business, eh, I'm an open book.
Yeah, awesome. And there's quite a bit of questions that we're gonna get into towards the end. Anyways, so yeah, so like for me, so you've mentioned running, like incorporating, and I think that's one of the advice that I would get to every artist. Like, obviously, if you're making pennies, like if you're just working on very small projects, like here and there, and you're just trying to get by, incorporating probably not a greatest idea. Um, Although it's always good to, especially if you're in US, to be incorporated just for protection's sake. Just bear in mind it costs about almost $1,000 a year to have a corporation in the United States. I don't know how it is in Canada, but I assume it might be a little easier than here. But
I haven't taken a look in a long time.
but one of the reasons why you incorporate in the first place is to protect yourself from lawsuits, because you never know what's gonna happen. Like, what if your work leaks out to the internet? That happens every now and then you're liable for it. If you're liable personally, they can come after your whole livelihood. If you're liable as a company that signed the contract, then they can only come after your company, especially if you have done enough, like no wrongdoing. You just became a victim of something, right? You have more leverage to protect yourself. And
Hmm.
I personally made a mistake of working with a big studio, um, namely Digital Domain.
Nice.
um,
I
and
love
I,
how you just dropped the name.
I mean, everyone heard about bankruptcy
Yeah.
and what they were doing to artists. I was one of those artists. I'm not gonna go into details of what exactly was happening. I'm gonna tell you, I've lost uh, tens of thousands of dollars because of it, and that was for me a learning lesson to make a corporation. Like, I literally not only lost the money that I wasn't paid because the company went under, but
Uh-huh.
also they tried to sue me as well. So I was
Wow.
in that predicament that was kind of sucking a lot. They were like it was more of a threats, really. I think it never went to court. There was like I don't even. I had to basically had to hire a lawyer and pay thousands of dollars for a lawyer to say fuck off, just to get rid of it.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, I'm not gonna go into details exactly what was going on because I don't think I can. But I mean, a lot of a lot of my friends that work with the company, and there's like many examples of that. There's some specific laws that are in existence that allow those things to happen, and it's scary. And it might be also some asshole that just decides to like, oh, like this work looks too similar to mine. I'm gonna sue you for that. You know,
Yeah.
these things can happen. Or what if you lose your work for whatever reason, and it just leaks out somewhere? What if you know you make a mistake of sending work to friend? I never do that anymore. Like I used to send, you know, you shouldn't send images to your friends even though if you trust them, but you know, it can leak. You never know. Everything is in Google, you know, drives and whatnot. That can leak easily, and then you're liable as as a person. They can come
Mhm.
after your house. They can come after everything you have. If you have a company, you're kind of protected. You know, if you're not doing something maliciously, meaning that you're working specifically to harm the business that is, you know, suing you, then all they can do is dissolve your company. Like they can make your company go bankrupt, but they will never be able to take your house away from you that you're already paying for, you know, that kind of stuff. So having a business just for protection's sake, but then also taxes, understanding how the corporation system work, understanding taxes, understanding, you know, how to pay and set up contracts and whatnot. Just the experience of setting up business, I think, makes the whole business game on your end to be more productive and better for you in the long term. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, or get somebody that knows that kind of stuff
Or
to
that,
work
yeah,
with you.
yeah.
Like my brother, he's one of the owners of the studio. He's the one that nobody ever sees or ever hears about, you know. And he takes care of a lot of that kind of like the paperwork stuff. It falls into his realm, and you know, corporation kind of stuff falls into his realm too, since we both kind of grew up learning about business.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense. That's cool. It's always good to have someone in family that can, you know, help you out. If you have that person, then by all means take advantage of it.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think the business part of you know of being an artist is one of the most overlooked aspects. Everyone talks about you know, foundation. Everyone talks about, you know, learning colors and perspective and, you know, making connections with other artists and
But are
how to
you,
find jobs
sorry,
and
are
whatnot.
you the one that actually reads through your contracts, you know, pages and pages of contracts? Are you the one that does everything, or is there more than one person in your company?
I'm the only person in the company, but I do have like so what I used to do is I try to read everything myself, and I quickly realized I don't understand shit. I read it like I don't even know what that is. But then I made a couple of decisions where, for instance, I would send a contract to a lawyer. Like I would hire a lawyer for a consultation and send like a contract that I already signed and worked on the previous project, right?
Mhm.
And just sort of like go through the contract and try to get a better understanding what those terms mean, like why there's a point about liability. What does exactly this mean for me and for them, right?
Mhm.
And and go with that. And then I would look at some aspects that are unclear to me to get a better sort of like overall good understanding on how the contracts are constructed. And then if there would be a project that justifies me to actually contact the lawyer and go over the contract again, instead of me just looking through it, I would do that. And I'm fortunate enough right now because like most of the work that I do is done through the union, through the Art Directors Guild,
Mhm.
or I work with the clients that I already worked with before, and I know what to expect. So, I'm gonna get a contract from them because I already work with them. I know what this contract says. I'm gonna read through it anyways, just to make sure that it's not, drastically different than anything else. But I'm not sort of worried that I'm gonna get screwed over, because the selection of clients that I work with specifically, it's so high level that I don't have to be worried about it. It will be unheard of if that happens. But then again, digital domain happened, so
You
you
never
you never
know.
know, right?
And also 10 years from now is completely different than
Of
now.
course, yeah.
You know,
So
how we were 10 years ago most likely is not the same kind of person we are now.
yeah,
And
that's true.
also, you run in certain circles and then some circles shrink and disappear.
Yeah, of course. And as I said, like if there's a new project on the horizon and there's someone who I don't know, then I usually approach with my set of rules that I have. Like one of the main things that I have in my contracts, that I try to have in my contracts. I don't have to care about that if I'm in a union and if I'm working for film studios, because that's granted by the film union, which is credits, being in the
Mm.
credits, right? So if I work on a film, I want to be in the credits. That's as simple as that, right? And if they don't grant me credits, then I want more money, because then, like, why do I work on this? Like, if I can't even advertise that I worked on it, if I'm not
Hmm.
credited, it's kind of weird to advertise something that you're not credited on. And that happens, like, if you work for VFX companies, oftentimes you're gonna end up in credits as a extra artist or something like that, even though you did like half the work for the film.
Hmm. Yeah.
um, So being in credits is important, or being able to show work, right? Like that's another thing. That the amount of money that I will ask for per day depends on whether I can show the work at the end of the day or not. Again, like in film, the film comes out. If you're in a union, you can show your work. You don't even have to ask for permissions. If you work outside of the union, that's more tricky part, because then you have producers, you have marketing, you have all of those things that might prevent you from showing your work anywhere. So
Yeah.
yeah, in those
Yeah,
cases,
a funny thing about that, we're doing a gallery show in Paris
uh-huh.
for the work that we did on Alice Through the Looking Glass, which is a Disney film. And Disney called me, even though Disney France okayed it. Disney, I think Europe, because I guess they're different or something, they contacted the people in the US to go, what the heck is this? So sometimes a company is just so big,
They
they
don't
don't
know.
they don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you want to have those things in the contract too. Like, if you work on a movie. So, for instance, I worked on Ghost in the Shell, right? But
Hmm.
now, obviously the copyrights are on Paramount and DreamWorks for all the work that I've done. And it's a pretty standard thing. When you work for a client, they do have copyright and they can use it as they please. And now, if you want to use it for your own benefit, then you have to ask for permission. That's usually
Hmm.
how the things work. And it's very difficult to. That's something. It's probably impossible to negotiate with the big studios unless your name is so big that you can just do that. Like if you're a HR Geiger, or if you're maybe Daniel Simon, or maybe Craig Mullins, like those caliber of an artist, then you might have some leverage. I'm not saying you will, but you might. But if you're on the lower end, like if you're not that high up there, you might not have that leverage with the big studios. But it might be a completely different story when you work with the smaller studios, or smaller projects, maybe some indie games or mobile games, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So I'm saying a lot of things that I don't have experience with, by the way. I do have experience with big studios because I work with them all the time, but I don't work with smaller studios, at least not now. So a lot of those things I just don't know. But I can tell you that my two main things is what are I gonna get credit for the work that I've done, like on the screen, especially if it's a big studio film or a video game, whatever, and if I can show my work. If those two things aren't met, I'm not gonna work on that project.
Hmm.
There's no reason for me to work on something that I cannot show the work from. Because I've done this mistake before. I worked on a film that just never happened. And it's the best work, I consider it to be the best work that I've ever done, is sitting there in the folder for the last 8 years. And I cannot even show it.
I
I
got
can
tons of that though.
and I can guarantee that if I've shown this work online,
Yeah.
I would get 10 times more work than I'm getting now.
Yeah.
And fun work, because what I did there was fucking fun. um, so that's, unless a client just agrees to pay you that much more that you don't care if you show that work or not, you know? And I've done projects like that too, where I would ask specifically, can I show this work after the project is done? And when the project is going to be done? Is it ambiguous thing like maybe, maybe not? If it's done, then you can show. But if it isn't done, then fuck off. Like that can happen too. And in
When
those
do you
cases,
come into the production?
um,
Usually.
depends. Like usually very early on. You know, for me, it's most of the projects I usually come into pre-production and then stay through the production till almost till VFX. So for me, it's like starting from the very moment that they don't even have a writer for a film, for instance, right? And then working on the film
So
through
you're like
through
kind
the whole
of almost
process.
working on a pitch
Um,
sometimes. Because that's what I do. I'm just
Sometimes.
asking, yeah,
Sometimes,
because
yeah, and then
like
going through the production as well. So for projects like, for instance, I'll give you some examples. So Ghost in the Shell, that was from the moment that they didn't even know the movie's gonna happen till the moment that they were filming and doing VFX. So the whole production, like
cool.
from pitching it to studio and making sure that they okay it, and then going through the whole pitching process, which is nerve-wracking because you never know what's going to happen. And usually 80-90% of the films collapse during that period of time.
Hmm.
Through the whole building process of building sets, working on all the assets, till the VFX. So that was Ghost in the Shell, for instance. Captain America, pre-production is done almost entirely by the viz dev over at Marvel, so I wasn't part of it. But then production part with the production designer, building sets, all of that stuff. That's where I worked on for
See,
like
I pretty much I don't work in production because I just
right.
I like the juicy beginning parts, when it's like pure imagination, you're working very closely with the
It's
director,
two different
maybe there's a
realms.
writer.
Yeah,
Yeah, so then I have a lot of projects where I can't show any of that work. You know,
yeah.
like there's probably at least 20
But do you work with
20 movie
producers mostly,
projects.
or who you work with most of the time? Is it producers? Is it like directors? Who is it?
Usually it's the director.
Okay,
Usually it's the director, and if it's an animated movie, then for the whole entire time, it's very closely with the director usually.
right,
Live
right.
action, then a lot of times you work with the production designer or somebody else.
See,
But
with the
that's
film is
yeah,
tricky, isn't it? Because like the studio, the studio, the money, and the amount of like politics involved in film making makes it almost impossible. If especially if you, again, like if you're not fucking, if you're Sid Mead, then you can do whatever you want, pretty much, right? If you're, especially if they hire you, right? I mean, at this point, Sid Mead is a legend. There's a couple of legendary names. There's certain names in the industry that can like probably can do that stuff. I don't know. I would have to ask them. Um, but in most cases, if you work for a big studio where there's thousands of people involved, it's gonna be extremely difficult to negotiate such a thing. Where like I want to be sure that my work is going to be shown. Like if you're already on a stage of a film that is in production, you're pretty much guaranteed that the film is gonna be done. Like in most cases,
yeah.
it's gonna happen. Like especially if they're gearing up for filming and all of that stuff, that means that the film is probably gonna happen. If the writer is on the film and the director and production designer is on the film, in most cases, film is happening.
No, I was just mentioning that because I I'm pretty used to not showing most of the stuff that I make,
Right,
and it's
right,
it's
right.
been fine. Only because like you said, you start making these little circles of people that like to make movies, and
That's
then
true.
you
That's true. Yeah, for that case as well. Like again, like there are certain studios that I would say I'm not gonna work if I cannot show my work. Right. In film, most likely my work I'll be able to show because of the protections that I have from the union, so I don't even have to think about it at that point. And then I care more about if it's the right person that I want to work with, like it's the director that I want to work with, and I want to work with again. I'll put all my chips into that game, make sure that I'm creating the work that is so good that they will think twice before hiring someone else. That's
Hmm.
usually what I try to do. Not succeeding all the time, but trying to succeed as much as I can. Um, but yeah, it's, if I work outside of the film, which is more loose, there's less regulations that apply to it, right? And especially on the smaller projects, if I would decide to pick a smaller project, then I want to make sure that I'll be able to show the work. If the project is never gonna be done, at least have some kind of clause in my contract that maybe 5 years from now I can post it. If the work is going nowhere, then 5 years from now I can post it. Like that kind of stuff that allows you to sort of move on and never get in the predicament where you're working years and years on something and then you never show anything. Because I've done this before in games. I've worked and I know a lot of people that have been 8, 10 years in games and they have no work to show because all the projects been canceled and they have no rights to show any of what they do. And that's probably their best work and they're just getting stuck. And you don't want to be in that spot. You don't want to be in the spot where you're creating, especially if you're working for a studio and whatnot, and you're working on a series of canceled projects, because that can happen, especially in games. There's many projects in games that get canceled that never happen. Like you work 6 years on something and it gets canceled. In the film, it usually gets canceled within weeks, maybe 2-3 months, so it's not that horrible. In games, you can work like 4 years on something and it just never happens. They just cancel and move on with something next. And then there's the 4 or 5 years of work that you've done, and you're stuck with nothing, especially for like, uh, professional kind of work, not necessarily. That's another argument, like why you should do side projects and do personal work to stay relevant. But yeah, like having some kind of tricks up your sleeve to say, all right, I need to have this in the contract. Otherwise, I'm not going to work. And obviously, you're going to have that leverage if you have other things going on, as you said. If you're running your own business and you have multiple projects going on, then it's much easier to do it, right?
Yeah.
Man, I went off tangent here. God damn. God damn. Man, I don't want to keep you for too long. We could go with this conversation for hours and hours on end, but I already fucked up with scheduling this whole thing.
Well, you know what? It's okay because once I found out the time, then I moved my meeting that I have right now to another day. So,
Okay.
we could keep going until at least this video finishes if you want. I just kind of feel bad to leave a half-done video,
So how
but it's
about
up to you.
no? Let's go into questions because there's quite a few of them.
Sure.
And I think if we go through all of those questions, the video is gonna end.
Okay.
All right, let's get this going. Let me see what are the first part of the stream was audio talk. Okay, I see the first question too. Are you going to be at THU again this year, Bobby?
No, I'm not. I went last year, had a great time, but it's just too many days for me,
It's
so I
long.
gotta
It's like
come back.
8 days, right? 7, 8 days, something like that.
Yeah, and the other thing is that I don't really believe in going to events that don't pay the speakers. I'm sorry. I love Andre. I love what he's doing, but that's just
Right.
my own kind of. This is why. It's not because I want the money, um, but it's because I want other people, when they get to that level, that they can get the money.
Right.
Because if you're
I get
working
it.
hard, right? If you're working hard and you get to the top and there's nothing there, that kind of stinks. And for these people to, and THU, like I said, highly respected. I love what they do. I had a great time. I'm just explaining just kind of like my principles,
No,
that.
it's fair. It's absolutely fair thing to say.
Mhm.
And I don't think anyone should be upset about it. It just depends exactly what you want to do. I personally want to do it for the experience itself. I see a lot of opportunities coming out of that too. I
Yeah.
believe. And it's also quite a few friends coming in there. I plan to have some few podcasts over there as well. So there's like it's a mix of sort of running a couple of things all at once during that period of time. And Andre is awesome. Like I like Andre, and
Yeah,
but I do get your point, and I don't disagree with it. So
because it's not really coming from kind of like art workshops, but just generally speakers in
it's your time.
general.
It's your time.
Yeah.
Like
And
you could do work
sometimes,
during that time, right?
exactly, and perhaps you're flying in your wife or, husband or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. You're spending that money too,
Right.
right? And
I
you're
wouldn't do
actually
that though.
losing money because you're there and you're not at home working.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, especially if you're a busy person and you run a couple of projects, you run your own business. The time you're away from your business is the time that the business is not growing. So that's one
Also,
point.
if there is a prize at the end, then you will attract uh you I feel like in the long run, it's a lot more sustainable to attract the right kind of people.
Yeah,
Because
that's
if
true.
there are two different events and one is paying, you know, it, like some whatever it is, something to show gratitude in a little bit of money. Uh, if everything else is the same, then people will generally they'll go to that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all valid points. I have my personal opinion about this as well. Like for me, THU, I have to experience it myself. I don't know how it is. Like honestly, I would need to experience
Oh,
it
you never
myself.
been?
No, never been, never been.
Oh, yeah,
So I definitely,
it's a big party. It's awesome.
yeah. So I wanna check it out, but I can tell you right away that's probably gonna be a one-time thing for me, because I generally hate traveling.
Yeah,
I hate it.
I think it's
Um,
like 6 days.
yeah,
So
it's pretty
it
long,
was really long for me.
and I'm going alone. I'm leaving my family here, so it's gonna be a difficult thing for me.
Oh,
Um, um, I could take my family, but I'll be just doing too many things to even enjoy it as a family trip, especially knowing that what's the format of the show, you know, because there's
yeah.
like different speaking events like IMAG and IFCC and all of those places where it is a little different format. You do a speaking event and you're off. You can do pretty much what you want, even though the event takes a couple of days.
Hmm.
This is a little different. There's like activities that are associated with it. I don't know. I'm just curious. So I figured, you know what, I'm gonna focus
You
on the
could go do
business.
your own thing. You're kind of like you're all on a peninsula and you kind of feel like you're stuck there, which is a good thing because then all the attendees mingle with all the speakers and the speakers get to mingle with all the other speakers and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
It's good in that way.
I
Yeah.
gonna have a art cafe with David Levy over there, and
Oh,
with
cool.
Eduardo Gonzalez again. So those two are confirmed. And we'll see. Maybe there maybe some more organic art cafes as well. I'm gonna talk to Andre. Maybe I'll get a room as well. Get some people in the room. That'll be fun. I'm gonna bring my own equipment. That's super easy to set up for me. So
Mm.
cool. Next question was how do you stay interested if you have wandering mind? What helps you to stay focused on what you do?
Well, you're talking to the right person because I totally have a wandering mind. Um, that's why I love doing, the work for a film in the very beginning, and then I'm out. I don't want to really work on something for that long.
Hmm.
Um, what's the best thing to do? Just have a couple things, have a couple balls in the air that you're juggling, keeps things interesting. Um, yeah, if I only have one thing to do through the whole entire day, that day goes by really slow. So I like to break up my day into time chunks for the different projects, the different things I need to do. That keeps it much more interesting. But if anybody out there ever had that feeling of like, man, what am I going to do with myself? Every job I get, I hate within like a year or something like that, or bored. I was totally that person. I would get bored, you
I
know?
used to. I used to. I mean, you're preaching to the choir, man. Like any project I take upon, a few weeks in, I hate it. I want to move on, do something else. But then that's the moment where like you show your professionalism and you kind of push through your best
Mhm.
result. You're trying to get your best results even you hate it, and then you get the love to it again. I do have a semi-wandering mind as well. I'm not like a kind of person that would perfectly focus on something. One of the biggest difficulties I found as being a freelancer is distractions and how you cope with them. Especially, let's say if you work from home specifically, and you have family. That's probably the biggest issue that a lot of people might have if they decide to work from home and they do have kids and do
Mm.
have like family living with them. The one of the rules that I have is closed door means I'm not here. I don't exist. Unless it's an emergency, the house is on fire, we have to go to hospital. That's an
Yes.
emergency. Then yes, I'm here. Otherwise, hey honey, can you go? No, I'm not here. Hey, what do you think? No, I'm not here. The doors are closed. I'm not here. That kind of stuff.
So that's great. I work with my wife, so we don't have that issue. I don't have any kids, so I don't have that issue either.
Got
But
it.
there's still distractions for many of those people out there that are single or whatever and don't have kids yet.
Like social media.
Maybe it's, yeah, social media, whatever it is, whatever that might be. Let me show you something real quick. I'll be back in 5 seconds.
Yeah, no worries. Take your time. Take your time. Speaking of social media, as Bobby is grabbing something, I've been pretty much off for social media for a while now.
So this,
Oh,
you
he's
know,
back. There we go.
it's not a promotion or nothing, but this is called a K-Safe, and it has a number on it. It has a time on it.
Uh huh.
And you turn the dial to go, okay, how much time do you want to wait until this box opens again? And you put your cell phone in there, you put your remote control in there, you put whatever in there,
That's
and it's
cool.
fantastic.
That is cool.
So you could open it, but you'd have to smash it. And the only other thing you could do is add more time to it when it's closed.
Oh yeah, that's that's the best way to fight addiction, I would
Yeah,
say. Yeah.
super easy because you're just like, oh man, I want that cigarette, but my cigarettes are in there. So okay, whatever.
I have I have taught myself not to look at my phone. I'll tell you how. I deleted all of applications that I had on it, apart from Instagram. That is basically you need a phone to operate Instagram. That's the only
Mm,
application I have there. And I do have like I don't have email. I don't have any of those apps that you normally check. Because why you get to your phone? Oh, let me check my email real quick. Let me check my Facebook real quick. Oh, let's see what's on Twitter. Oh, let's see what's
yeah,
on YouTube. Oh, let's see what's there. Let's see what's that. And now I pick up my phone. Oh, let's see. Oh wait, I don't have anything to look at apart from my weather and time and if someone called. All right, fuck it. And the
yeah. I'll
calendar.
literally I'll put my phone in there too. So,
Yeah.
but if there's an emergency, it's just made out of plastic. I just smash it and grab my phone.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's a good idea. There's many ways, but I mean the best way is just to sort of like remove those distractions from you. There's even an application that you can like an extension you can install to your Chrome if you're using Chrome. I think Safari has the same thing, where it just basically allows you to have a certain amount of minutes on specific sites that you select as blacklisted, and if you go over the timer, they're blocked. You cannot use them till the end of the day
Yeah, I
or till
used
the
to use
specific
those,
hour.
but
Frustrating.
I found that a lot of the sites that waste time also are the same sites that you would go to for like actual work. Like
Yeah,
I
like you want to
forget the
ask a friend a question that you need specifically for work. Yeah, I've noticed that too. So I stopped using it for that reason as well. But it might be helpful for someone else. You never know.
yeah,
Yeah,
sure, definitely.
I'll
I
tell you.
almost got uh there's a thing called a Doki watch, which is like a watch phone for kids. I was like, man, that's what I want. Something where I can't have any apps. I can only call and receive calls from people in my list, and I can only message people on my list. And
Yeah,
it's for kids. So if emergency happens, then my loved ones can find me through the GPS,
yeah.
on the Doki watch.
How do you deal with clients that way? Like, are you always available for a phone call with clients, or do you have like only specific times that you, like up until like 6 p.m. I'm not even gonna bother if client is calling or is sending me emails.
My main thing is like you have to give me a heads up and get a confirmation from me, and then I'm good. So just let me know beforehand,
Yeah.
because generally my day is very kind of organized
And packed,
with
I would
all these
assume.
yeah, meetings and time blocks for certain things. So if there's something sudden, then I usually don't do it, except for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally screwed up. But thankfully you were okay with it, so.
No, I look forward to meeting you, so it was cool.
I basically switched the time zones, so I thought that I thought correctly you're 3 hours ahead, but then I made it so I'm 3 hours ahead when scheduling, and I'm like, what the fuck? All right, anyways, um, how do you cope with a project you're working on and it's shit? Like the project is shit and you have to work on it. Like
Oh,
you hate the project.
you won't like this answer because it won't help you. I just don't do it. You know, I it doesn't happen very often because you have that meeting with them in the beginning, making sure that the project hopefully is a right fit. So you usually are right. And I don't know, my guts, I feel, are smarter than I am. So if Spidey sense is tingling, then I won't take it. Um, yeah, that's pretty much my answer because it's so frustrating when the person that is okaying the decisions kind of thing, the person that puts the
Mm-hmm.
approval stamp, doesn't have the same taste as you at all.
Yeah.
So they're telling you to paint things that you don't want to paint, approving things that you wish you never got approved, or things that don't get approved. And you're just like, why? We totally need something like this. I generally, I don't take those jobs. And if I am on that job, then I leave, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I
It's not
get.
the best answer.
Yeah, it's probably for those who are stuck and they cannot leave because that's what pay their bills. It's going to be a
Mm,
difficult. But yeah, I mean, sort of like having a filtering process helps. And then if you really have to do it, then I have this advice that will help you to get better in general and don't have that dilemma ever again, which is the job you hate and you think is the worst, take it so seriously like it's the best thing ever and deliver like it's the best thing ever. Because even if it's a shitty job and you can show you can do some tremendous thing with it and like put extra effort towards making it done, then the next projects might be easier. But like there is going to be a collateral effect of your work being excellent every time you take a work because like obviously you're gonna get better at what you do, but also this shitty client that you hate, this job that is absolute garbage, might be friends with you know James Cameron or I don't know Steven Spielberg or someone, and then the next time they have brunch or coffee together, and Spielberg asks, "Hey, I'm doing this pitch for Robopocalypse or something. Do you know someone good? Because I'm tired of all the other artists I work with." It's like, hey, I worked with this guy. I had a shitty project for him, but he fucking killed it. You should try him. That happens too, by the way.
yeah, no, totally. And that's why I was saying my advice for that question is not the best, but in 12 years, I've quit 3 jobs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
So
don't
it's
think
not
I've
many.
I don't think I've ever quit any job before, and I don't think I got specifically fired by being said like you're fired. But I think I had some jobs where I don't think I was delivering the right thing, and then eventually they figured like, oh, actually the project is ending now, which is a nice way of saying we don't want to work with you anymore. I think I had few
Mhm.
times when that happened.
But the whole
Uh,
entire thing is, it's like, the industry, just the name, the industry, they don't call it the artists. We're in their world. So
yeah,
we have to think about, how should it really be because they're making the rules.
yeah, that's true. That is true. And it can be depressing sometimes, but yeah, they are making the rules, and unless you try to sort of like pursue a route that you become an independent, whether you're starting your own business or becoming like a big uh, online almost celebrity where you can make money by selling your merchandise and whatnot. You're always going to be stuck in that predicament unless your work is awesome. That's another point. But
Yeah.
is it right shooting directly for the dream job or getting or going for the slower route of taking whatever job in the industry and climbing up year after year? That's an interesting one. I think it's
Yeah, because sometimes you only get one chance, right? And
yeah,
if you aren't totally prepared yet, so for me, I did not want to climb that ladder. I did not want to start from the bottom and work my way up. So instead, I just kind of looked at what's out there and made sure that my stuff is at that same level.
yeah,
And then when it's at that same level, I go for the top jobs. And that's exactly how I did it. And that's how I got to work, be one of only 3 character designers for like the first Alice in Wonderland. That's how we were able to create our own TV show, and win an Emmy. And I'm just saying, because if I aimed for the bottom to work my way up, I would be in the exact same place as somebody else that's struggling with their career. I'm only saying this because if you guys, the listeners, adopt that as well, like, let's aim for the frickin' top. If we don't feel like we're ready yet, and if we're not starving, let's work on our stuff until we get to that level and then aim for that level, or at least close to that level and start aiming for that level.
right.
You know, it's the ultimate, Super Mario Brothers pipe that leads you to level 8, or that's super old reference. But it's the ultimate shortcut.
Yeah. No, it's a multi-layered question, I believe, and you kind of answered most of it, and I agree. Like, I don't think you should. It's the right choice to pick any kind of job you need to pick, unless you're like against the
People
wall with
don't wait.
money.
People don't wait enough for the right jobs to come. And
True,
it's not
true.
just sitting there and waiting. It's doing stuff, putting more art out there, but holding off for the right kind of jobs.
Yeah, I would put it this way: if not taking this job means you have to quit this industry and work, let's say in McDonald's or clean, being a janitor or some whatever else job you need to take to pay the bills, then maybe take that job. That job that you're not gonna like, it's gonna be probably not that great. It's not gonna progress your career more. But even saying that again, like the person who's hiring you might be friends with someone else. And again, like if you have an agenda that whatever you do is going to impress the client, then do it, even if you hate it. But at the same peril, saying if you're already sort of like I think I'm doing good, should I take this another crappy job? I would say maybe wait, maybe spend that time developing yourself personally, doing some personal work that will make your work so much better. And you said something interesting, like aiming to the top by looking at other artists that are doing great job. Am I at that level? No, I had a lot of work ahead that I need to do, and that's gonna be difficult if you're taking project after project, right?
Yeah.
Super difficult to do that.
Those projects where it's like, uh, yeah, I could do that real quick. I could do that real
Yeah,
quick.
yeah, yeah,
Those
yeah.
are the worst.
Yep.
Guys, do not take those jobs,
Yeah.
because that's a total sidestep away from your ultimate goal, or a back step towards your ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
I agree. I agree 100%. There was another question which we kind of answered, which was if there's any advice for aspiring freelance artists with regards of building client base in the industry, and we kind of answered it by just saying do your best job and look, have a portfolio that is great because that's going to attract clients, and when you work for client, impress them. I think that's the best way. I mean, you can always reach out to other studios and clients and try to connect, but I think those two worked out for me very well. Like I have never reached out to any, like only in the beginning I was sending my portfolios, but ever since I got my first work, I usually try to focus on the quality of the work I do, and then how I present it online, and that's what got me all of the jobs later on.
That's fantastic. Um, I did want to mention, if it's okay,
Yeah, go ahead.
we did talk a little bit about the TV show that's coming out, Nico and the Sword of Light. It's coming out on primevideo.com, which is Amazon's streaming site. And it's coming out on 21st. And it's called Nico and the Sword of
Oh,
Light.
damn.
Yeah,
Let me Google
so
up.
that's next week. I gave you a trailer. I don't know if I
Oh yeah,
included it or
I
not, but
do. I think I do have it here. I'll play it. I'll play it. No worries.
yeah, and I'm having a panel as well. So if you are at Comic-Con, you could come see me at table G6 under aisle 800. You could buy originals, prints, whatever. But also, we have a panel on Sunday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. in room 24 ABC. So come and see us there. And yeah, I just want to kind of give a plug for the TV show.
Man, perfect. Let me make sure people can see it. Just gonna put it up there and play it in a second.
At every third moon's darkening, a champion is created to defeat the evil sorcerer, Nar Est.
Just gonna
And
keep
every
quiet.
time they have
Yeah,
failed.
sure. Well,
Present this
you
new
do that.
hero with the
I'll
shard.
answer
Keep him hidden. Keep
WDC
him safe.
Studios
This time,
question.
you will
Any chance the
win.
Perfect Bait will be released on Android? So what I want to do with that is, that's a book that I wrote from. I started it when I was a student, and as a student's point of view, and really tried to figure out what things work, what things don't for your art career. And then in my 10th year, I believe, maybe 8th year or something, doing what I'm doing, I wrote this book called The Perfect Bait. It was after I interviewed like 60 some odd top-notch, artists like, Dice Satsumi, Peter DeSev, Mike Mignola, interviewed Craig Mullins, and, like all the top people, and got their advice and put it into the book as well. That book is sold out, unfortunately. It's called The Perfect Bait, but sold out. And what I plan on doing with that, because so many people have supported me throughout the years, I plan on giving it to the community for free. So you can look out for that. The best way to know all this stuff and when it happens is, if it's okay, sign up for the Schoolism newsletter, or you could sign up for my YouTube channel. You could just look up my name and find my channel there and subscribe.
Dude, that trailer is awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it looks rad, dude. That is super awesome. Congrats. I'm happy for you, man. Looks
Thanks so
amazing.
much.
I'm gonna watch it definitely. I do have Amazon Prime, so I'm definitely gonna watch it. All right, let's get maybe 2 more questions and wrap it up here.
Yeah, sounds good.
There's quite a few more, but if we don't answer them, sorry for that. I mean, we only have time to do a few. I don't want to hold you off for too long. I do have my own work to do as well. So, all right, one of them is, what is the advantages of having a studio?
Well, what are the advantages? Now you're making me think, why the hell am I doing this? But I guess, one is, of course, I can come in when I want. I can leave when I want, and I'm my own boss,
Right.
Number 2 is the whole entire idea of kind of like being protected away from all the drama that can happen sometimes on projects. Other advantages. Okay, so I pretty much can fly anywhere in the world I want, and I don't have to pay for it. My company pays for it. Why? Because I set up a workshop. I want to go visit Prague. I set up a workshop. I'm going there for legitimate reasons, and I have to show the teachers a good time, which actually translates into, hey, call up my friends. Hey, you guys want to go to Prague? On me. Let's go. And we'll just, teach a little bit, and that's it. And so that obviously you can't do if you don't kind of like, run your own thing.
Right.
And then I have a, workshop house it's like a lake house that's 6 hours away, which I will go to every once in a while and visit. We house like 4 students there, and I'll go there and teach once in a while as well. So you need a car for that. So then you can lease a car, and then you can switch that car every 3-4 years, right? And you got a brand new car to drive around, plus the gas that that I pay for to get there. Well, that's not coming out of my pocket either.
So
So there's all
expenses
sorts of
the
things.
studio, yeah.
Yeah, because if you're just freelancing and you're making, perhaps $100,000, you're going to be giving so much of it completely away
In taxes.
in taxes.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why it's worth to have to be incorporated, just even for that, because there's so much more expenses that you can bundle under the company name, especially if you're doing business for the company, if
And
you're
for
going to the
me,
business trips and whatnot.
also, the biggest thing is, like, if you want to do anything big, you can't do it by yourself. You need
Yeah.
more people, right? So for me, like, this is why I was like, yeah, right on, Learn Squared. Yeah, I'll be there for you guys and do this podcast, because for me, I want to, just like you guys, change the world in a positive way. I want to literally change the art community in a positive way by kind of giving everybody all of the knowledge from all of the best artists in the world, and giving it to everybody also for an affordable price. So those things, like what you're doing, what we're doing at Schoolism, that's a big job. That's a really big job that needs more than one person. It needs a few people. It needs a bunch of people. So
Yeah.
that's the other purpose of the company, is to do bigger things.
Yeah, man, I wish we should do it like a round 2, maybe on your stream for a change. I don't know, whatever works. But talk about the schoolism and Learn Squared. Like, talk about the experiences with the schools, because I think we could exchange some pretty cool conversation there about education in general. I mean, we are both educators at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will be fantastic. I think we should set something up if you're down for it, obviously. All right, let me get through to one more question and we'll wrap it up. How do you find energy for work to work on your own projects, art, when you have a non-creative job and you're really tired?
You gotta punch that laziness in the face. You gotta tell that brain of yours, brain, you are just like my finger. I can move it when I want to. You do not control me. And the thing is that we're full of stuff that is not totally us, I feel. Things that will make us do stuff like maybe our stomach hurts, but you really want to go running, and then you won't go running. Your brain will tell you so many things, so many excuses, so many other things to do besides do art. Take control of your brain, and tell it what to do. And then you won't have those problems.
Yeah, brain likes to do that, telling you things that you're not supposed to do because they are easy. And we are just in human nature. We like to do easy things. That is so legit. But there's something you touch upon. I think it's interesting and very true. There's 2 kinds of being tired. One physically tired, and then one mentally tired. If you're physically tired, that not necessarily means you're going to be mentally tired. Mentally tired means usually going to be physically tired as well, that I've noticed. But one of the remedies, like, I guess it's a brute force remedy, which is basically go for a run, go for a long walk, and then come back. You're going to have energy. You're going to have a brain energy to do stuff. You're going to be inspired to do stuff.
Also,
of the dopamine,
Also, if you think about, how much time you have on this planet, even if you have a full, 90, 100 years, how many of those years can you actually work, though? You know, you're
Yeah.
just growing for like the first 20. Those are gone.
Yeah.
You know, the last 20, if it's 100 years, the last 30 maybe are pretty much rocky for doing work. You know, because you're going to have all sorts of problems. Maybe your eyesight's going as well and things like that. So this is our time.
Hey, maybe with
This is our
CRISPR,
time.
with that CRISPR development, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen? Stem cells and CRISPR, we might be living a couple of extra 100 years. Who
Could
knows?
be. Could
Could be.
be. Who knows? I'm
Who
not going
knows?
to assume.
Yeah, let's not
So,
bank on that.
yeah, exactly. This is all about taking things in perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. And another thing, I was just talking with one of the artists here, and I was just, she was asking, I forget. Oh, if I had any advice for her, and I was just like, you know what? Here's a good one. Care about the things that the people 20 years, you know, plus your age care about. Imagine when you're 10 years old, you cared about the things that 30-year-olds cared about. You would get your accounting down, you'd get your economics down, you'd get your, you know, you would get your health down, you would get so many things cooking. Your art would be insane by the time you hit 17, right?
Yeah.
If you're starting at 10 with that 30-year-old mindset. So I try to think about, what does that 60-year-old person care about? You know, and that's exactly what I did when I was 20. I thought about what the 40-year-old me would care about.
Right. Right. That's an interesting perspective on life, honestly, you know? It's very interesting because we tend to be sort of boxed into that day-to-day life, hour to hour, only caring about what's now and not really caring about what's next. And when we do care about what's next, we usually worry about the things that will never happen, instead of trying to figure out maybe there is a solution or a recipe of doing something ahead of time that will make life easier when it comes to it, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
it's a very interesting mind gymnastics in a way, to sort of think about, yeah, what would the 40-year-old think about when I'm 20? What would the 60-year-old think about, you know, at
And
their age as an
what would
important
that
thing?
person, what would that version of you, what decisions would they make?
Right.
You know,
And
not
how
just
you
what they
translate
care
it to your
about.
current decisions too. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
interesting. It's interesting. It's sort of like flipping the book and trying to read it backwards almost.
Well, because you don't want, like, okay, would you rather have do a really good job on this one project, or would you rather have an awesome career throughout your life? Well,
Yeah.
then think about the long term, you know? It's so basic, it sounds like a rhetorical question or
I'll
something,
tell
but
you though, a lot of people don't ask those basic questions. They overlook them because they are so basic that you feel like you have to overlook. Like, oh, it's a common sense. You know how it is when you, like, you're a teacher, right? You do teach. And when you have to, like, when you go through foundations and you teach someone about anatomy, I don't know, like whatever the subject is, you quickly
Mhm.
realize, as a professional, someone who's done this for, you know, decades now, you realize, oh damn, like I have to school myself a little bit because the things that I took for granted became so rusty I don't even remember half of it. And it's the same thing with everything else, you know? Like I was teaching in my class, I was going over perspective rules, for instance, right? And I
Mhm.
realized as I'm doing it, something that I took for granted, like this is my foundation of everything I do. And then I realized, wait a minute, how do you do that? How do you actually get those really complicated forms? Because I usually eyeball them, but how do you construct them, you know? And then you realize, like, oh, there's some holes in your own game. And that's exactly what happens with those simple questions that you assume are so simple you shouldn't be even asking them, you know?
That's a common trait with
Yeah.
people that, you know, have a bunch of years under their belt. They are just like, okay, so one of like the classes that we're working on with Schoolism is with Craig Mullins, which you mentioned, right? And he said to me, I don't know why anybody would want to learn from me. This would be like so redundant. This people would know this stuff, and
Is he
I'm
like
just
the
like,
most
no.
humble? Is he like the
He's
most humble person on earth?
one of my favorite people, one of
Yeah.
my absolute favorite people. He is beyond what I hoped he would be before I met him. Just a genuinely awesome person that knows so much. It's just mind-boggling the amount of information this person knows, and he doesn't really think of it as like really that special. He's not a big kind of marketer like you and I that market ourselves all the time and whatever. He doesn't care for that kind of stuff. You know,
He's a
he's
legend.
such a genuine artist.
And
I
he's a
love that.
legend, man. He's one of the reasons why I started doing this. One of the
Legend
main
of
reasons.
legends, right?
Yeah, legends
Legends
of
of
legends. Yeah.
legends. And so you were talking about Saijin earlier before the stream. It was
I
that one of the biggest draws like on that forum is if Craig Mullins, if Spooge posts anything.
dude, that's the reason I joined that. That's the reason I even started looking at forums, because I saw his work over there, and I saw he started those sketches, threads that were like thousands of posts,
Yeah.
and then every veteran I know, like, do you remember Siege and Times? Like, yeah, of course I do remember. Like David Levy and all of those guys, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like HPX. There's so many like really cool artists that I know from that era that have been posting there. I thought you were posting there too, but I think you were just everywhere, and I remember you from everywhere, literally everywhere. Because
I
they're
was
like,
on conceptart.org. I was on this forum called eatpoo.com,
oh yeah, I remember that one.
and a little tiny bit of the drawing board.
Okay, yeah,
And that's more towards animation.
gotcha. I do remember. I clearly remember your work because, like, back in it was like 2003, 2004. There wasn't that many artists out there that were actually vocal and presenting their works, and usually you could assign sort of like a style and a trait to a specific artist, and then when you saw a work, you could tell, oh, that's the guy. So
Hmm.
anytime I saw like really cool looking creatures, I knew, like, I could tell it's your style. I could tell it's you. When I saw like weird ass freaking drawing of some weird shapes with hexagons, like that's either like David Levy or one of those other awesome, like Vague or other
Or the
or
rake
Viag
kind
or
of brushstroke that's going to be sparse, right?
yeah, exactly. Like you could tell, you could definitely tell who painted that right back then.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, those interesting time. Now everything is so saturated, it's hard to tell who's who. Well, that's a different topic, completely different topic. Anyways, dude, it was so awesome to talk with you, and thanks for making time for it, even with my fuck up. And I wish, dude, we should do it again. Like if you want to, if
Yeah,
you have
we should
time for
totally
it.
do something. We should totally do something. Let me check my schedule and we'll find a time that works for both of us. I
Yeah,
know like after like from now till I guess around mid-August, I'm probably not doing any streams. I'm just going to be buried in work for a while. But
sure.
yeah, I would love to join forces and do something cool for the art community. Sounds great.
Yeah, let's do it. It's gonna be fun. And I'm pretty sure everyone who's listening in, they agree. They always agree because it's always a good thing. Very cool. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us today on the stream. For everyone who joined us live, super thanks. And obviously, all of you guys who asked questions. And if you didn't get your question answered, we're terribly sorry. But yeah, there's only the capacity to do as much things as we can. And obviously, thanks for you, Bobby, being here and getting a little bit of your busy schedule rescheduled, especially for this. So yeah, let's do it again, and till the next time.
Yeah, my pleasure, Massey. Thank you very much for having me. You could follow me if you want. You could follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Just look up my name, Bobby Chiu, and
Yeah,
subscribe to
I'll
my
grab
YouTube channel.
I'll grab all of the links from you, including your TV show, and make sure it's posted in the description of the
Fantastic.
video. All right,
Thank
cool.
you so much.
All right,
All
guys,
right.
take care.